Welcome to the Conscious Radio Network's YouTube channel. Become enlightened, have fun, and tell all your friends and family to share with everyone they know. You can find us on Facebook and stay up to date on our Facebook group, or find us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Our podcasts can be found on Libsyn, iHeart, Spotify, Google Podcast, and more. Most of all, remember to go to our official website at consciousradionetwork.com for podcasts, hosts, future shows, and scheduling. We also want to welcome our international audience. Don't stop now. Enjoy the community. Subscribe today.
This is the Conscious Radio Network.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening. Welcome to the spaceship we call Earth. Welcome to Conscious Radio Network's the Seance weekly show. I'm your host, Reverend Dr. Paul Mekas. If this is your first time, please click subscribe, like, comment, and share, and also follow us wherever you listen to your podcasts. Today, welcome back to our special report, Part 7 of Septemics, a philosophical science, Hierarchies of Human Phenomenon, Analysis, Prediction, and Management of Human Affairs, with Jim Marshall, founder and creator of Septemics and author of the book, Septemics. We are going to continue covering the book Septemics. If you have the book, please go get the book, Septemics. Get it on wherever you get your books or on Amazon. We're going to start out, and if you have the book, you can follow us. We're going to start off on chapter 16. But before we start, welcome back, Jim. How are you doing?
Hi, Paul. Good to see you.
Good to see you again. Good to see you again. So before we jump in, would you like to give a quick introduction for those who hadn't chimed in on the last ones?
Sure. For those of your audience who don't know me, I am the discoverer of hitherto unknown natural phenomena, which greatly aid in the understanding of people, from which I created a revolutionary practical philosophic system called Septemics, and published it in the book, Septemics, Hierarchies of Human Phenomena. And today we're going to discuss some of the contents of that book.
Awesome. And before we start, let me put the website up so people that are watching can jot that down and go and check out the website and possibly order the book. So cool. So let's pick up on the on chapter 16, scale of mental deletion. And in your book, it's also referred to as the scale of trauma deletion.
Okay. So first, I should talk a little bit about, since the word mental is in there, what do we mean by the mind? Because most people are very confused about this.
Mm-hmm.
So I will just tell you what I know that I've been using my entire life in my career as human development engineer. The human mind is an electromagnetic field matrix generated by a spiritual being, which interfaces with the nervous system of the person, the largest part of which is the brain.
Yeah.
Now, this is obvious. If you listen to people talk, they'll say, well, he lost his mind. Well, in that sentence, the antecedent of the word his, he lost his mind, is the being. Mm-hmm. The being lost. In other words, you are not your mind.
Yeah.
It's something else. Now, people who meditate and do other types of similar work understand that you are not your mind. It is a different thing. But they don't really know what it is. It gets mixed up a lot with the brain. It is not the brain.
Mm-hmm. Because
there are non-corporeal beings and they have minds.
Yeah.
Although they have no brains. So, because it is an electromagnetic field matrix that you create, you can delete parts of it. Now, why would you want to delete parts of it? Well, Part of it is conscious and part of it is subconscious. The part of it that is subconscious acts upon you without you knowing it.
Yeah.
That's why it's called subconscious. To the extent that you can make the subconscious part conscious, it is no longer part of your subconscious. So when we talk about mental deletion, we're talking about deleting the subconscious. So every unwanted condition that you have comes from your subconscious mind. And this is a basic datum upon which I based my career as human development engineer. And that career led eventually to the discovery of Septemics.
Mhm.
And this scale is part of that, part of Septemics. So that is what the mind is. So every person on earth has parts of his subconscious that he would like to get rid of. The problem is you don't know what it is, where it is, what content is it, or how to get to it. That was my job as human development engineer, to
Yeah.
guide the person to trace back whatever unwanted condition he had to the specific part of the subconscious. And by getting him to view that, make it no longer part of the subconscious, but rather part of the conscious mind. And once you are conscious of it, it has no power over you.
Mhm.
It only has power over you because you're not aware of it. So it's like a program that's running in the background all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a linear scale as opposed to a spiral scale. A spiral scale is one in which there is an apparent congruence between levels 1 and 7. That does not apply here. It just goes 1 through 7. This is a gradual scale, meaning there is an infinitude of gradations between the levels. This is not something where you skip instantaneously from level to level, as is the case in quantum scales.
Yeah.
And this is a general scale, meaning this is not context driven. A person is at a particular level on this scale at any particular point in time, and unlike a specific scale, a person does not have various levels for different contexts. So, for example, the scale of motivation is a specific scale. You could say, what is my motivation toward my wife? What is my motivation toward my boss? What is my motivation toward my son? They are different contexts, and there will be different levels corresponding to that. This is a general scale that does not apply. So you find your level, that's it, that's your level. Now, in this particular scale, if you have some technology by which you can erase or delete parts of your subconscious, you can move up this scale. That is what I did with my clients as human development engineer. Now, typically people begin at 7. So in other words, everybody enters this scale at level 7. So you start deleting by re-experiencing. So this is re-experiencing an incident, sometimes repeatedly. So let's say a guy is in an automobile accident. That's a traumatic incident. He goes to a therapist. The therapist says, tell me about your automobile accident, right? That's why the guy went to the therapist. So the client starts telling the therapist. And as he's doing this, he is re-experiencing it to some degree. Now, the depth to which he re-experiences it, the breadth to which he re-experiences it is a variable. But usually, the person might have to go through more than once. In other words, he goes through it in one session, then in another session, he talks about it some more. And eventually, he can delete that trauma from his subconscious. So it no longer has any effect on him. So let's say the guy has some unwanted condition that was caused by this accident. Well, once he deletes that experience from his subconscious, he will no longer have that unwanted condition, whatever it is. Let's say he becomes very nervous and anxious, right? That would be a typical response to being in an auto accident. So then it goes away and the anxiety just goes away. In other words, the anxiety is a symptom. And when you delete the experience, the symptom just vanishes. So that is the lowest level. So most people have some reality on this. Like, for example, you could have a guy goes to his bartender. He's friendly with the bartender. The bartender said, "You don't look so happy today. What's going on?" The guy said, "Well, I had a fight with my wife and she wants a divorce." And, he tells his bartender all about this. So as he's doing this, he's re-experiencing this incident, you see? And when he leaves the bar, he might feel much better. Not because he's drunk, although that might also be true, but because he has deleted some part of his subconscious, the part relating to the fight he just had with his wife before he came to the bar. So that upset is no longer with him. So quite a bit of this sort of deletion by re-experiencing goes on with anybody who will listen to you. Psychotherapists, pastors, close friends. So you can actually facilitate some deletion, right? So the wife is all upset, crying. "Oh, what happened?" "Oh, well, my mother died." "Oh, tell me about it," right? And so as she tells you about it, if you're a good listener, you don't argue with her, you just listen. She's re-experiencing it. She stops crying. She says, "Well, I feel better about that now." See? That's level 7. That is the most shallow level of mental deletion. Now, the next level up is recounting. And this is by recounting several similar or related instances separately. So, for example, the guy goes to a therapist and he says, "Well, I had a fight with my girlfriend." And you tell him about it. And then he might say to you, "Well, have you had other fights with your girlfriend?" "Yes." And he tells him about those, right? Then he might say, "Well, have you had similar fights with other girlfriends?" "Yes." You see, and at some point, he's recounting these several similar related experiences. He's recounting them separately. And they are sort of hooked together in some kind of a chain in his mind. So by recounting these, he sort of gets rid of this whole bunch of stuff. So it's not necessarily a specific incident, it's more like a bunch of incidents. So this, a good psychotherapist knows how to do this. Guy says, "Well, I had a big fight with my father." "All right, tell me about it." Then the guy doesn't look so great. He said, "Well, have you had earlier fights with your father?" "Yes, we've been fighting for 30 years. "Well, tell me about one of them," you see? And so he recounts these several similar or related instances, and a piece of his subconscious is deleted. So then he feels better about the situation with his father. Whatever upset or difficulty, negativity he had just goes away because he confronted these. Now, the next step up from that, which will not be real to most people, is what I call an automaticity. An automaticity is an avalanche of several similar or related instances. So to continue the analogy we just used, the guy's talking about he's been fighting with his father for 30 years, right? And he's telling the therapist about this. Now, at some point, this guy might get something in his mind that's like an avalanche. All this stuff breaks loose in his mind. And he remembers all these, oh yeah, there was that time and that time and that time. And it goes faster than he can even say it. And he re-experiences this avalanche of related incidents. And they all go, gone.
Yeah.
That's deletion by automaticity. So that's where you get rid of a lot of stuff in a short period of time. Now realize we are going up the scale. Each of these is a steeper gradient.
Yeah.
So it requires a higher level of cognitive ability by the person who's doing the deletion. So
Okay.
this is not so much how good the therapist is. It's what kind of mental shape you are in. You see, a guy who's in pretty good shape can get to level 6 pretty quickly. And then at some point, he'll jump up to level 5 and say, I don't know what just happened, but all this stuff about my father just went away. I don't care about it anymore. That's an automaticity.
Yeah.
That does happen. I've seen it happen right in front of me many times. So the next one up from that is deletion by observation. This is where you look at it and it goes poof. For example, let's say a guy's afraid of dogs, right? And the therapist said to him, well, was there a time earlier in your life where you had some bad incident with a dog? And the guy will think about it and have a look at it. And yeah, I was bitten by a dog when I was a kid. And he gets happy and it just erases.
Yeah.
Just like, just by his looking at it.
Wow.
He didn't even need to have the avalanche. He just looked at that one incident and that whole little sequence just went poof. So it's the way you experience it subjectively is that you erase it because you observed it.
Yeah.
That's what it says by looking at it. You look at it and it goes poof.
Huh.
Ah, now I get it. I was working with a client once who had a terrible problem with his wife, right? And all of a sudden he said, oh, I just remembered something. You know, he tells me something from years ago with his father. And it's like the whole thing cleared up in his mind. Just like where his father had told him not to get mixed up with that family. And he did it anyway. And when he spotted that, it was like, poof. You see, he had an epiphany just by looking at it. All he had to do is remember it. When you remember it, you look at it.
Yeah.
You see? Now, the next thing above this is enumeration. This is where you erase by counting how many there are. So let's say guy's having trouble with his wife. Yeah, we had a big fight. Well, have you had earlier times? Yeah, we have had a lot of fights. And the therapist must say to him, how many fights have you had with your wife? And he thinks about it. And he says, 82. Poof! The whole thing erases.
Yeah.
It's by enumerating. Now, you got to be in good shape to do this.
Yeah.
Somebody who's in very poor mental condition cannot do this. You have to have the idea already that your mind is separate from you.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something there, and you look at it, you count how many. Yeah, like the guy is worried about his income taxes. And you can say to him, how many times have you worried about your income taxes? The guy says, a lot. Well, how many? 162. Poof. Because the guy has the ability to zero in on that and get that data, it deletes by enumeration. So that whole body of anxiety that he has about his taxes goes away. The next level above that is by location, where you simply locate it. In other words, when you're looking for something in your mind, and when you locate it, the whole thing goes poof. You don't even have to enumerate.
Mm-hmm.
Just by locating it is enough. So Like, let's say you have a guy who's timid, right? People bullied him when he was a kid. Well, can you spot the first time this happened? The guy looks, he locates it, the whole thing goes poof, just like that. There's a whole chunk of his subconscious that just deleted as a result of his locating that thing, whatever that one thing is. This is a level that most people never get to. This is a high level. So if I was working with a client for some time, after years, he would get to a point where he could just locate it. That's it. He doesn't need to tell me about it or anything. And usually a person, if he's good enough to do this, he'll say, okay, I'm done with this. Now, of course, I had the advantage of biofeedback when I was working with my clients. So the biofeedback would always tell me exactly what was going on with the person. So I would know right away that it had erased or deleted. The highest level of this is by will, which means you simply decide about it. Guy says, I'm just not going to worry about this anymore. I'm done with this. He decides about it, and it's done. So let's say you have a guy, he's wringing his hands over politics. Oh, who's going to get elected? What's going to happen to the country? If this guy gets elected, what's going to happen to her? There are a lot of people like this in America now, right? They're very worried about politics, And you can get a guy to just if he's in really good shape, say, you know what? I'm just not going to worry about this anymore. And that's it. He's done. No more anxiety. I can give you another example. I have a friend who was a heavy smoker since teens. And then, all the data came out about how bad it is, it causes cancer. At some point, he just stopped. He just said, I'm not smoking anymore. That's it. And he just stopped. Now, you know how many billions of dollars have been spent by people trying to stop smoking with patches and gum and everything else? He just said, I'm done with this. I've decided I'm not going to smoke. And that was it. He just never smoked again. I'm not talking about a guy who smoked once in a while. This was, he would light one cigarette. I don't know if he was quite a chain smoker, but almost a chain smoker. And he just stopped. And I had another friend of mine who was a smoker. So he shows up at my house one day. He says, I'm not smoking anymore. I said, that's great. How'd you do it? He said, I just decided I'm a non-smoker. This was a very bright guy. Okay? He was capable to do that. He just decided, I'm a non-smoker, never smoked again. That was deletion at level 1. So his will was enough for him to decide that he just wasn't going to do this anymore, and he didn't. So that's the scale of deletion. Most people don't know anything about this, really, although I tried to give some anecdotes to explain, how this does commonly happen with bartenders and pastors, and it certainly happens with therapists. But for me, as a human development engineer, this was what I did, which is how I found this. I'm not hearing you.
Hold on. Hold on. You still can't hear me?
Now I can hear you.
Okay. So
Oh,
I've got a question. Can
okay.
something be on multiple levels, for instance?
No. Can't be a multiple. You can move. So as I explained in the chapter, often what you find on a person who's in some kind of therapy or facilitation or meditation is a bracket. Like, for example, a guy will be deleting things commonly by recounting, level 6.
Yeah.
And then one day he'll have an automaticity. And then the next day he's back to recounting.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like a sliding bracket.
Mm.
And that bracket often has to do with the severity of the trauma. Sometimes people will have particular incidents that are so traumatic for them that they have to address it at a lower level. I had a client once, a very advanced, brilliant person. And I was working with her, and she was doing very well at recounting, just moving. Well, we ran into this one incident where she had been violently raped by a guy with a knife, right?
Wow.
This was a severe trauma for her. We ran into this. We had to run this, and there was a lot of crying and everything else. And eventually it just erased. So that big trauma was not going to run like some of these other things, see? So that's sometimes a factor in why you will do one thing at a higher level and another thing at a lower level.
Yeah. Huh. Cool. All right.
But at any given point in time, the person is at a specific level. And he might jump up one or jump down one briefly. And
Yeah.
then sometimes the whole bracket will move up where he's no longer doing any re-experiencing. That's not necessary, but he's at like 4, 5, and 6,
Yeah.
And then if he continues to advance, he could move up to where he's at 3, 4, and 5. See, depending on the substance of it. But at any given point in time, at any moment, he's at a specific level.
Yeah.
So that would be something I would have to pay attention to. What level is this guy at? So, if he observes it, right, then I might ask him to enumerate it, and he might be able to do that. But then again, he might not. So then we're still down at a lower level. See? So you have to pay attention to where the client is and but the client will just sort of tell you. He'll just sort of tell you, he's deleting things by just looking at them.
Yeah.
I know the next level up is enumeration. So at some point when it's appropriate, I might say, well, how many times did you get angry at this guy? See? And then he might say, oh, yeah, 16 times. Poof, done.
Yeah.
You see? So that's sort of like,
Okay, I found this on the web for 16 times.
She found
I
it.
don't know what's going on.
Well, it
I
found
didn't even touch it.
Oh, I tell you,
So-
AI is getting scary. Yeah, I don't know
It
what the
is.
key word was.
Already scary.
Whatever that trigger word was. Yeah. Oh, weird.
And I don't even use that app.
Me neither. I don't. I
So-
never use Siri ever. Yeah.
So anyway, any other questions about this?
Nope.
The good news here is that there is a pathway for you to get out from under your subconscious. You just have to find somebody who knows how to do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there are lots of people around. Most of them are, you might say, keeping a low profile or have a low profile. Because needless to say, the criminals who control the world definitely do not want this type of technology to proliferate.
Yeah.
They want you to be worried, upset, angry,
Fearful.
and that is why I don't have a TV. I'm not inviting their mind control into my house.
I hear you. Good idea.
So if there were no other questions, I'm ready to move on.
All right. 19 here. Let's go to.
Okay,
And
the scale of
scale.
aberration. So let's talk about aberration because many people don't know this word. Aberration comes from the Latin aberrare, which means to wander from. So this is how you go from being your regular self to being your crazy self.
Mm.
So, right, a guy is, he's just regular cheerful self, right? Then something happens and he starts going down the scale. And depending on how far he descends, he gets crazier and crazier and crazier. Or you might say he gets more irrational, which is the word that I use. If you look on the right, the axis here, this is an axis of rationality. Above level 1 is rational, right? Nobody could be perfectly rational, but you could be very rational.
Mhm.
And below level 7 is irrational. So even if a person is very irrational, there's some tiny shred of rationality. So that is what this is a scale of. Everybody enters this scale at level 1. There are no exceptions. It always starts at level 1. And then you wander from your regular self in this sequence of events. This is extremely useful because once you know this, you can run a person back up the scale
Yeah.
toward rationality. And I give specific examples in the chapter of how to do this. So this is a linear scale, right? There's no apparent congruence between levels 1 and 7. It's a quantum scale, meaning you skip instantaneously from level to level. You're at 1, and then suddenly you're at 2. And then suddenly you're at 3. There is no intervening gradation. You do not move gradually from these other than going 1, 2, 3, 4. There's no 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, down to 7. It's quantum. Okay? And this is a specific scale, meaning a person could have a certain rationality on one subject and a different rationality on another subject. So very often you see this, like a guy, if you talk to him, let's say at work, right? Let's say he's an accountant, right? On accounting, he's perfectly rational. Okay? But if you ask him about his dating, right? He might be really irrational in that area. So he's talking to you from one of these lower levels.
Yeah.
So, and you'll see it right in front of your face. The guy's fine. You mention his wife, and then he's not fine.
Yeah.
Okay? So each of these is really a major discovery. So the beginning of aberration is misconception, by which I mean misunderstanding. A person has a misconception about something. When he has a misconception, that necessarily makes him less rational on the subject because he has a misconception.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'll give you an example. How about Hitler's misconception that the Jews were responsible for all of Germany's ills? That's a misconception.
Yeah.
It's demonstrably not true, right? But he had that misconception. So that put him onto this scale, descending this scale. You see? And then because he had that misconception, he jumped to 2, which is misdeed. At level 2, you commit a transgression. Well, given his dopey idea about the Jews, that made it easy for him to do bad things to them. That's level 2.
Yeah.
And again, if you read the book, I go through many examples of how this happens in real life. So after misdeed, what happens next? If the person continues to go down the scale, the next thing is he has a secret. Why does he have a secret? Because he committed a transgression. Because when a person does something bad, he keeps it a secret, right? A guy robs a gas station, he doesn't go around saying, yeah, I robbed a gas station, right?
Yeah.
He keeps it a secret. He sees a policeman. The policeman says, what are you doing here? Nothing. Guy just came from robbing a gas station, right? It's a secret. What is a secret? It's a restraint. He's restraining this thing. He's restraining himself. That is what a secret is. It is a restraint that you put on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you didn't commit a misdeed, you wouldn't have a secret. So you have to realize, like, let's say, for example, in the Catholic Church, it used to be that you were not allowed to eat meat on Fridays.
Mm.
So for Catholics, if a guy ate meat on Friday, that was a misdeed. So he might keep it a secret. See?
Yeah.
He's not going to tell people that he had a salami sandwich for lunch because he's a Catholic, and to him, it's a misdeed. Now, to his Jewish friend, he doesn't care. Eat all the salami you want on Friday. See? It's not a misdeed for him, so there's no secret. So you see how this cascades?
Yeah.
What happens after a guy has a secret? If this continues to worsen, the next thing is he gets suspicious. He's worrying if people know his secret.
Oh, yeah.
So you bump into this Catholic guy, you say, "Hey, Joe, what'd you have for lunch today?" He immediately says, "I wonder if he knows. Maybe I have salami on my breath." You know?
Yeah.
Maybe he saw that there's less salami than there was yesterday. You see?
Uh-huh.
So he's worried about this now. Now, that's kind of a preposterous example. But how about a guy? He cheats on his wife. He keeps it a secret. And then she says to him, "Where have you been? You usually get home an hour earlier." He was just with his mistress,
Mm-hmm.
right? He wonders, "I wonder if she knows." This is not a good state to be in.
No.
This is like a type of paranoia.
Yep.
See? She didn't say to him, "Were you with your mistress?" She didn't say that. She just said, "Where were you?" See?
Yeah.
So that's more irrational. He's worried. He's worried. Are people going to find out that I'm cheating on my wife? Right?
Yep.
Then he goes out to mow the lawn. He sees his next door neighbor. The next door neighbor says, "Hey, Joe, what have you been up to lately?"
Uh-huh.
Dum, dum, dum. He's worried. I wonder if this guy knows that I'm cheating on my wife.
Yeah.
You see? So this is what happens when you have a secret. You begin to worry if people know. And that is you're worried. You're not only is it a secret, when they're worried about people finding out the secret.
Yeah.
That's the next step down. Now, the next step down after that is he gets upset. So the neighbor says, "Joe, what have you been up to lately?" This neighbor doesn't know anything about the mistress. He's just being friendly,
Yeah.
right? And this guy has this chronic suspicion. He gets upset. He says, "What do you care? It's none of your business." See, that's an irrational response.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's what you get from people like this. Have you ever seen that happen?
Oh,
A
yeah.
person who's defensive, right?
Mm-hmm.
You touched something. So let's say you have a guy who, he's gay. He's keeping it a secret. He wonders all the time, "I wonder if people know that I'm gay." Right? This is like a chronic state for him. Right? And somebody sees me and said, "Oh, you look very handsome today." You see, that could sort of be like, "Oh, I wonder if he knows I'm gay."
Yeah.
You see? So he gets upset. It's none of your business. You see? He gets mad.
Yeah.
This tells you that when a person gets mad, it's usually because he's worried about something that you nearly found out about him.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever seen somebody get mad and you say, "Why did that person get mad?"
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I've had many times people got mad at me. I have no idea. Why is this guy mad at me? I didn't do anything.
Yep.
Right? All of a sudden, the guy's upset. Well, that guy, I touched something. It could be anything. Because you have to realize all this is in his subconscious now. This is a lot of this is buried. He's repressing this stuff. See, that's the problem with the secret. You repress it. You don't want people to know, so you sort of get it out of your mind. So by the time you get down to level 5, you get upset. You don't know why you're upset. And the guy who you're upset at, he doesn't know why you're upset either. Now, he will give you a reason why you're upset. Well, I'm upset because blah, 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 and he'll give you some stupid reason.
Yeah.
That's not the real reason. And I'll tell you something that I know from working with people for 40 years. A person never knows why he's upset. Never. And I use this continuously because I would get the guy to spot what was actually upsetting him, which was never the thing he thought.
Yeah.
And when he would spot it, he would stop being upset.
Yeah.
So, for example, a guy's upset about his wife. He's mad at his wife. And you might say to him, well, were you worried that your wife might find out something about you? How did you know? Yes. You see?
Yeah.
And he stops being mad at her. He says, yeah, well, that's why I'm mad at her. I'm worried that she's going to find out that I've been cheating on her. So he stops being upset because he finds the real reason. So then what happens after this? Now you have to realize the word mad in English means upset, but it also means crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You ever notice how crazy upset people are?
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Now, what's the next thing the person does? He rationalizes it. He dreams up some rationalization or justification for it. In other words, he keeps the upset but puts a rationalization on it. Like, well, the reason I'm mad at you is because you didn't send me a Christmas card. See, he's rationalizing it. That's not why he's upset at you. He doesn't really know why he's upset at you, but he's rationalizing it. Now, usually this rationalization will come in the form of something like, well, Joe's really not a good guy. That's why I'm mad at him. You see? Or something stupid like, well, he's a Mormon. Mormons are weird. So, you see?
Yeah.
So he rationalizes it. He'll have a rationalization. That's the next thing down. He'll form a rationalization. Now he's really irrational because there's nothing more irrational than a rationalization.
Yeah.
Like a guy who says, you can't trust women. Right? That's a rationalization. Or I told you this once before. I actually knew somebody who said to me many times, all men are beasts. That's a rationalization. In other words, this person is upset with men, is worried they're going to find out about them, has secrets from them, has misdeeds, has misconceptions, and it ends in rationalization.
Yeah.
And it's you can't do anything about that rationalization directly. In other words, you can't argue him out of it. If you say to the guy, I knew better than to say to this person, well, clearly all men are not beasts. I should say, oh, yes, they are. So you can't argue. In fact, I had a relative of mine who said to me once, this was her rationalization, children today don't listen to their parents. So I, not knowing this material, this is when I was quite young. I think I was about 19. I said, well, really, all of them? I mean, don't you think there are some of them maybe that do? Oh, no. See, this person was not going to be talked out of this because it's a rationalization and it is held in place by 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1.
Mm.
So this person holds on to this rationalization. You see?
Yeah.
So you're not going to be able to do anything unless you can get with this person to work back up the scale. And I tell you in the chapter how to do that.
Mm.
Now, the next thing below this is the person will go into an identity or a persona.
Mm.
Like a person will have an identity. I actually know somebody who is an avowed anti-Semite.
Wow.
Now, if you talk to this person about other things, he's a rational person.
Yeah.
See, it's a specific skill. But you can't talk to him about Jews. See? That is his persona. I'm an anti-Semite. He's not even hiding it. He once said to me, next step for me is to put the swastika on my arm.
Phew. Wow.
That's what he said. Okay? So the person has gone into a persona that memorializes his rationalization.
Yeah.
So you'll find a guy like a womanizer, right? Which is like a Lothario, right? This guy's a Lothario. And he's gone into this identity where he just goes around and has these sort of casual sexual relationships with these women. He doesn't treat them well, well, that's his identity,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a Lothario.
Huh.
So when you get somebody in one of these identities, again, you can't talk him out of it. You would have to get him back up to 6 and then back up to 5. Now, when you get him back to 6, the identity might go away, but he's still going to be rationalizing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But by the time a person gets to a fixed idea like I'm a communist,
Yeah.
that's an identity. So behind that identity is an awful lot of other horrible stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or how about a guy who's a button man, a hit man for the mob,
Mm.
right? They want somebody killed, they call this guy up, and he goes, give me the address and the picture, and he goes and he kills the guy, right? That's his identity. I'm a hitman. See? That's really irrational to be
Yeah.
that way. Now, of course, he's going to have justifications. Well, I get $10,000 a hit.
Right.
And I'm good at what I do. See, that's another rationalization. But how did he get to the rationalization? Well, he must have been really upset at somebody somewhere, like maybe his father. You see? So this is how you go from being a normal, sensible person to being a crazy person.
Mm.
Because once you get into an identity, that's the bottom of the barrel. You know how many people in crazy houses think they're Abe Lincoln,
Oh, yeah.
Napoleon, Thomas Jefferson, Hitler, whatever? They have all these crazy identities, right? Now, those are actual names, but sometimes they're not names. They're more like titles.
Yeah. 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 Oh, I've seen some that are not even animate, or like they're inanimate objects. Like, I'm a tree. What? I'm a tree. What are you talking about?
Right,
Like really, really off the wall stuff.
right. So, there's a lot of trauma and craziness that occurs before the person gets to the idea of saying, I'm a tree.
Yeah.
And this is the sequence in which it occurs.
Wow.
So if you read the chapter, I go through actual, not historical, but complete scenarios where
Yeah.
you pick up the guy at 7, you ask him the right question, he goes to 6. You ask him the right question, he goes to 5. You ask him the right question, he goes to 4, and so forth. And you can get the guy right up to misconception. Once you realize he has a misconception, that goes away, and like this whole area of craziness is gone.
Mm. Yeah.
This is really useful
Oh, yeah.
because when somebody gets upset at me and I haven't done anything, oh, I know that this guy is worried that I might find out about something.
Mm-hmm.
You see?
Yeah.
Maybe he's been talking bad behind my back.
You can ask him, hey, do you got a secret?
Well, that's a very risky thing to do.
I know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not advising that.
You better really know him well.
Yeah, don't do this at home.
Yeah.
You know? But you see, and if a person has a secret, there's a misdeed under it.
Mm-hmm.
So you see, this is how I was able to help people. A guy would come in and he'd have some big secret. Well, I would know that behind that secret was a misdeed. So I would get at the misdeed. Okay, tell me the secret. Okay, now, what did you do to this person? Or what did you fail to do to this person? Or what did you do to this type of person? You see?
Yeah.
So you get the guy at the level and you know what's underneath it and you ask that. And when you get that, he'll go broop.
Yeah.
And the level that you first saw will not be there. The guy will stop being upset. He's suspicious now, but he's not upset.
Mm-hmm.
See? Not as
Yeah.
bad. So that's how this works. Most people really have no idea about this. And to me, this is as real as eating an apple.
Yeah. 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 That's a very I like that scale. That's really a very useful one.
Right. And it tells you how people get crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you see somebody, like a friend of mine said, yeah, I saw so-and-so, and what happened to her? We used to be really good friends. She's a different person. What happened to her? Right? Well, what happened is she went down this scale. That's what happened.
Yeah.
I already know that.
Huh. Wow.
And remember, it's a quantum scale. So you're at one level, and then a billionth of a second later, you're at the next level down. That's why you'll see somebody will suddenly get upset with you.
Yeah.
Did you ever see that? Somebody, all of a sudden, the person is upset. See, you weren't having an argument. You didn't say anything bad. All of a sudden, the guy's mad at you. Oh. I knew a guy like that once who, the first time I met him, I knew this guy was a Looney Tune.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Just from the way he was speaking. I could see that he lived on this scale.
Mm.
And at some point, he got upset at me. Well, I knew there had to be, he was worried about me finding out something, you know? And underneath that worry was a secret that he had.
Yeah.
And underneath that secret was a misdeed. And underneath that misdeed was a misconception. And what this tells you is people are basically good. And the way they get screwed up is by a misconception.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it could be a small misconception or a big misconception. But that leads the person, that opens the door. The misconception opens the door. So when a person gets something right, finally says, oh, yeah, I thought it was this, this, and this. You mean, see, I thought that, I didn't know that Mormons were Christians. Mormons are Christians? Yeah, their church is called the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They're Christians.
Yeah.
Oh, see, he had a lot of people have that misconception.
Yep.
So,
And that's the very first dangerous. That's the very first dangerous point. Is that starting point is there's so many people that are misled.
That's right.
They don't correctly understand stuff, and they get in arguments, and this happens, and that happens, and next thing
That's
you
right.
know, they just go down the scale.
Right. So, like, Trump is a racist. I've known the Trump family my whole life. I grew up where they were New Yorkers,
Mhm.
right? I have relatives who lived in their housing.
Yeah.
I belonged to a boxing club that was in the basement of a Trump building. So they were on the same street as my father. So I've been around the Trump family since I was a kid,
Yeah.
right? Trump is not racist. Now, I'm not saying you should vote for him. I'm not saying he's a genius or anything. I'm just saying it's obvious. He's friends with Mike Tyson.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's friends with some other famous rapper who I can't remember. You know,
Yeah, I forgot who that was.
there's some famous rapper I can't remember his name, but anyway, there's all kinds of. He's friends with all kinds of people,
Mhm.
and if you understand his personality, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the guy in New York, right? Which has got, I don't know, maybe 1 million black people in it,
Mhm.
right? So it wouldn't be wise for him to be a racist.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Not in the business you're in. I mean, it's like
Mayor,
if you're in that
mayor,
business, it's just
they have a black mayor now. They had a black mayor before, Dinkins. So
yeah.
see, Trump. I guarantee you, Trump knew Dinkins.
Mhm.
Because see, Trump is more powerful, more famous, more rich, more connected than Dinkins ever was.
Mhm.
I'm not criticizing Dinkins. I'm just saying Trump is connected to everybody. So
Yeah.
I know. So there are people who say Trump is a racist. That's a misconception. So that leads you, then you're open to committing a misdeed. Oh, you're a Trump fan? Punch him in the nose.
Yeah.
Okay? Or like if you have a Trump sticker on your car, somebody comes along and smashes your windows. Things like that are going on in this country now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay?
Stupid stuff as
I've had things like
seen.
that happen to me. I'm not just saying regarding Trump or
Mhm.
what political party you're into, but I've had several incidents like that where I don't tell anybody anything now
Mhm. Don't have any bumper sticker.
because no matter what you say, somebody is going to think you're wrong.
Yep. It's gonna create an argument somewhere. Somebody is going to argue about something.
Right. So, like I had a guy once, I was in my friend's living room, and this guy came over. He was a mutual friend. We were all friends together. And they're sitting on the couch. I'm sitting in the living room. We're just talking, it's a Sunday afternoon. How are you? What's new? How's business? All of a sudden, the guy gets enraged at me.
Mm.
I was shocked. I looked at him. I knew what I was dealing with, but I didn't say a word. I said, okay. That's a good way to deal with it. There's a famous story about Carlo Gambino.
Mm.
Carlo Gambino was in a restaurant once with a bunch of people, having a nice dinner. And somebody else in the mafia came over to him and insulted him
Ooh.
in the restaurant in front of all these people. Gambino did not say a word. Not a word. He didn't lose his temper. He didn't argue with them. Right? 2 weeks later, that guy was found dead.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, you don't argue with somebody like that. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that you should have him killed, but Carlo Gambino had a lot of people killed.
Mhm.
Okay? So in the mafia, that's considered an option. There's a famous quote from Oscar Goodman's mother. Oscar Goodman was the lawyer for the mafia in Vegas.
Mm.
He knew all of them. He was their lawyer. Very smart man. He eventually became the mayor of Las Vegas and was reelected many times.
Yeah.
His mother famously said, Oscar's clients don't bother anybody. They only kill one another. I
Yeah.
think that's hysterical. But there's some truth to it.
Yeah.
Mafia people don't like to kill people who are not in the mafia. They're called civilians.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
leave this guy alone. He's a civilian. But if you're in the mafia and you do something wrong, like go out with somebody's wife who's also in the mafia,
Oof.
you're dead.
Yeah, not a good idea.
So, there is such a thing as somebody gets upset with you, you just let them say whatever they want to say.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because you're not going to talk them out of it, because you touched something.
Hmm.
So, like a question I ask people many times, knowing this scale, people would give me a misdeed. Yeah, I stole $1,000 from the company I worked for. Tells them all about it.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's fine. But if you get to a point where the guy is criticizing somebody, this guy is a so-and-so, 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 and he didn't treat me right, I'll say, did you ever do anything like that yourself? Yes. You see, he stops being upset immediately
Yeah.
because he realizes that that's why he was mad at him, because he himself had done that. You ever do that yourself? This guy is bad. He cheats on his wife. Okay.
Yeah.
You ever cheat on your wife? Well, yeah. Huh? So then he's not mad at the guy anymore. See?
Yeah.
Any questions?
No, that's a good scale. I like that.
Next.
Let's see. Final scale of physical fitness.
Okay. Well, every person on the planet should know this scale and use it.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons that people have trouble handling their health is that they don't know this scale. And I'll give you a perfect example. I've worked as a holistic health practitioner. That's part of my practice as a human development engineer. Because people would sometimes come to me and I would find out they actually had something physically wrong with them. And so I would just fix it holistically. Don't even have to talk to the guy.
Yeah.
So if a guy comes to me and he's sick, oh, I feel sick, I'm throwing up, I have headaches, I can't, he's sick, right? That's level 6. So the next time I see him, how you doing? Oh, I'm just weak as a kitten. Throwing up? No. Headaches? No. I'm really weak. I'm happy. You know why? He went from level 6 to level 5.
Mm.
Because weak is above sick. Most people don't know that. I had COVID when we had the big pandemic.
Yeah.
Good time to cough.
Yeah. Right
And
on.
after I got rid of it and I no longer had the symptoms, I was weak for 3 months. 3 months. So I said, well, this is better than what I was a month ago.
Yeah.
See, because I know this scale. So this is why crash diets don't work and crash exercise programs don't work. You have to pick the person up at the level he's at and move him up to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. So if a guy is sick, you don't want him exercising. Rest.
Yeah.
Take your vitamins. Take your medication, right? And then when he says, well, I don't have a fever anymore, but I'm really weak, applaud yourself because you got him up to level 5.
Yeah.
Then you have to deal with that. See, then you have to deal with the weak part. What are we going to do to make this guy not be weak? So I would get him in and adjust his meridians and things like that. And he would say, yeah, I'm not weak now. He's gone up to level 4. He's normal. So this is what you have. That's why you can't make a competition athlete out of a couch potato.
Yeah.
It can't be done. There are too many intervening levels.
Mm-hmm.
If this guy's a couch potato, he's probably at 5 or 6. That may have contributed to him becoming a couch potato, and it might also be caused by him being a couch potato. It doesn't matter. So you have to spot what level this guy is at. You have to do an assessment and see, what's really the deal here? So then I would have to ask the person about the symptoms. You find out he's diabetic. Well, that's a sickness, isn't it? That's level 6. So you can address that holistically. It's been done.
Mm-hmm.
And after he's not diabetic, well, now he's weak. He's still not ready to lift weights, you see? Then you have to deal with the weakness. You have to get him up to 4. Not 4, then maybe you can get him to lift weights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this is a linear scale. There's no apparent congruence between level 1 and 7. It's a gradual scale, meaning there is an infinitude of gradations between each of the levels. And it is a general scale, meaning there's only one time you use this. In other words, it's not context-driven. The person is not at different levels in different contexts. He's at this one level.
Mm-hmm.
A guy comes into you, he's at some level on this scale, and that's it. General scale. That's how general scales are. Now, what are we measuring here? Look at the dotted vertical line on the right. We're measuring survival potential and immunity. So above level 1 is infinite survival potential and total immunity. So that is why it's above level 1, because no human can actually get there.
Yeah.
You can get very, very close. Did you ever notice there are like nurses and priests who go in these hospital wards? All these people are sick. This guy's got pneumonia. This guy's got dysentery. All these things. Right? This guy's got. They don't get anything.
Yeah.
Why is that? They're very high on the scale. They have immunity. See? Which is another way of saying they have a high survival potential.
Mm-hmm.
Now look at the bottom of the scale. Below level 7 is 0 survival potential. 0 survival potential means you're dead.
Yeah.
And you have no immunity when you're dead. So if you're still alive, you have some survival potential. The guy's heart is still beating. He's still breathing. There's some survival potential, but very, very little if he's at level 7.
Mm-hmm.
He's succumbing. This is the guy who the doctors say, maybe to the wife or to another doctor, this guy will be dead in 2 weeks. So that is what this is a scale of. Most people don't know that.
Yeah.
When you're talking about fitness, you're talking about survival potential and immunity. How much survival potential do you have? Let's say you have a guy who's at level 2, athletic, right? He's 6 foot, 225 pounds, no fat,
Mm-hmm.
right? This guy's in athletic condition. So, and I'll give you an example. Rocky Marciano, the only heavyweight champ who was undefeated, never lost a bout. He would run 15 miles as a warm-up for the boxing match. Right?
Yeah.
Most people couldn't run 15 miles if you held a shotgun to them.
Jeez.
And those few people who are able to do it, when they were done, they're ready for bed. Take a shower and go to bed, right? That's a marathon. See, a type of marathon. So this guy, Marciano, it just made him feel good. That was his warm-up.
Yeah.
Now, I was a runner, right? I ran typically 5 miles at a time. And so, I'm in awe of that. Wow, what condition this guy must have been in. So he was at level 2, okay? So you might describe him as vibrant. So he had a very high survival potential, tremendous immunity. I once went to a holistic practitioner who treated me for some time, and she said to me, this is when I was young and kind of new to this whole thing. She
Yeah.
said, I could probably just ingest the parasite, my body would just kill it. And that's the first time anybody ever said that to me. And I thought, wow, yeah, that's a good place to be.
Yeah.
So if you're really, really in good shape, you can go around sick people, nothing happens.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Your body just kills it.
Yeah.
So let's start at the bottom, okay? So this guy is dying, which means he's succumbing. So this person is in a bed, or if he hasn't even gotten to the bed, he might just be lying on the ground, dying from a heart attack.
Yeah.
Succumbing.
Or in hospice.
You have to realize he's succumbing. Okay, so up from that is not dying, it's just sick. This person is dysfunctional. Something's not working. His liver's not working. His kidneys are not working. Something is not working in his body, whether it's by infection or whatever. Something is dysfunctional. That is what sick means. This person can't function. He's not even up to being weak. So if this person improves, he'll come up to being weak, meaning he's now not sick, but he's unhealthy.
Yeah.
So this person, if you were to take this guy and make him go out and run 5 miles, he would be sick the next day.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's unhealthy, and he would go right back down to level 6. You see?
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that. You have to give him a chance to become healthy. And as he gradually becomes healthy, eventually he'll come up to 4, which is what we call normal, a normal, healthy guy. So once the guy is normal, then you can focus on making him strong. See, a normal person is not a couch potato. He's just an average guy, And you can say, okay, well, why don't you get a gym membership and start working? Okay, you see, and then he starts to get strong, which is level 3.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a strong person is energetic. Most people don't really connect those two things. Oh, he's a very energetic person. You know why he's energetic? Because he's strong.
Yeah. Yeah. In every sense.
Okay, so, a lot of people get confused about muscles. Ted Williams, the greatest hitter who ever lived, was called the Splendid Splinter. That was his nickname. He was 6'6" and thin. I mean, thin. Now, of course, as the years went by, like everybody else, he gained a little bit of weight, a pound or two. But he did not look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? He just had this fantastic skill. He could unleash on the ball and really hit it.
Yeah.
So there are people who have muscles who are not strong.
True.
Yeah. I mean, like, I've gotten sick. My muscles didn't just go away. Like I worked out a lot, lifted weights and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
My muscles just didn't go away because I got sick. Now, eventually, if I stayed sick, they would start to go away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So you can be sick and still have muscles. So like you have a professional football player, he comes down with the flu, he can't play, right? He's sick. He's still got all these bulging muscles. See? So that can be misleading to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I used to be involved in boxing. You can have this little 135-pound guy, right? Skinny. Boxers are skinny because you have to make the weight. They're all skinny. I mean, 99.9% of them are skinny. There's a few in the heavyweight category that are not. But in all the other categories, they're skinny. And so this guy goes into a bar, right? There's this big guy who's 6'5", 250 pounds, starts a fight with this little guy, and he wakes up in the hospital. What happened?
Yeah.
See? This guy didn't have a clue. I can tell you, don't pick a fight with a boxer,
Mm.
right? They will hit you twice and you will be asleep.
Yep. They make a living on knowing how to hit.
That's right. And doing it with minimal body weight.
Yeah. And force.
Right. So you got to be careful. You have these little 140-pound Oriental martial artists look like, they couldn't move a couch,
Mm.
And God forbid you should get in a fight with one of these guys. They'll just dismantle you in seconds.
Yeah.
So strong is energetic. Don't get it mixed up with having a lot of muscles.
Mm-hmm.
Now, athletic, most people understand that an athlete is vibrant. This guy is probably not going to get sick. And they're beyond strong. The strength of these guys these competition athletes is really beyond the comprehension of most people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, like people who swim the English Channel,
Oh.
that's been done many times. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
If you look at these people, they don't look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but these are athletic people. And then above that is superhuman. A superhuman is indestructible, or you might say virtually indestructible. And so the examples I give in the book are Hercules, Samson, people like that.
Yeah.
There are people who, for some period of time, are at this indestructible level. I used to say about myself that my body was like a rubber ball. I could just run it into a brick wall and my body would just bounce off.
Yeah.
And so that's what you find sometimes in great athletes. You try to tackle a guy, you just bounce off him. He just keeps going. Jim Brown was like that.
Yeah.
Greatest football player who ever lived. So you could say there's nobody at this level. Well, we don't really know that. Maybe there is. Because Samson is presented to us as a historical figure.
Yeah.
Now, Hercules is presented to us as a mythical figure. But I would argue that in the Greek mythology, they have Hercules, and in the Jewish mythology, they have Samson. Now, the fact that I'm calling it mythology doesn't mean the person didn't exist.
True.
We don't know. But remember, I've said many times, most people have trouble understanding the extremes.
Yeah.
So you see a young, healthy person, and he's around somebody who's dying, he just doesn't get it. When I was a little boy, my grandmother lived with us. She had diabetes. She eventually died of diabetes. She could barely make it up the stairs. I mean, it was like climbing Mount Everest.
Wow.
And eventually, she moved to a place that had no stairs. So, this was a sick person.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so at some point, she died from it. So at some point, she slid from 6 down to 7.
Yeah. Huh.
On the other hand, I have a grandfather who was told when he was fairly young, doctor said to him, if you don't move, you're going to die.
Yeah.
He moved to San Diego and he lived 30 years.
Wow.
And it's not like in San Diego he was standing around. He had a job, he had a farm. He was fine until eventually he got into his 80s and he died. So, the doctor saw this guy was sick and eventually he would go down to level 7. So he got him out of that environment. and he was able to be a normal person again
Yeah.
in a different climate. That's why I live in Arizona.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell you, it's where you live that makes a difference.
Makes a
What you,
difference.
where, yeah. And how you treat yourself, how you treat the body,
Well, of course. Of course.
which is what's good about this scale. But I tell you what, what's really inevitable is everybody is eventually going to make it to 7.
Oh, good. Yeah. Well, think about this. Let's say you have an athlete, right? NBA basketball player, right? And you shoot him.
Hmm.
In a matter of seconds or minutes, he goes down the scale.
Hmm.
He goes from athletic down to strong, down to normal, down to weak, down to sick, and 10 minutes later, he's dead. You know, something that you see in films and TV is this business about you shoot the guy, you stab the guy, and he dies. That almost never happens.
Yeah.
It takes some time for the person to die.
Yeah.
You know, there is a famous mafioso whose name eludes me at the moment, who somebody, a corrupt policeman, was hired to assassinate him.
Hmm.
And he got him alone in a room, and he put 5 or 6 bullets into him. I forget how many. He emptied his gun into this guy. The guy lived. They got him to the hospital. They took out the bullets, and he went on with his life.
Wow.
So, you know, you see this idiocy where you shoot somebody once and he's dead. That's very hard to do. Is it possible? Of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in all these cowboy movies, you know, you shoot the guy once. That rarely happens. Like Alexander Hamilton, for example, was shot in the side by Aaron Burr. It took him about a day to die.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's
Yeah. Look at the interesting story with Harry Houdini. I mean, he tried to defy life, defy death his entire life,
yes,
but it ended up a college student punches him in the side and he dies a few days later on Halloween.
right. So anyway, I urge everyone, get the scale, use the scale, find where you are, and take the appropriate steps. Don't make the mistake of doing the wrong thing because you don't know what level you're at. You know, like if I'm feeling weak, I'm one of these guys. I've been working out like on a daily basis since I was like 10,
Yeah.
you know. Well, if something happens to working very hard combined with not getting enough sleep, something like that, I'm weak today. That's it. I'm not going to work out. And then the next day I'm better. I went from weak back up to normal. Then I could start lifting and go back up to strong. You see?
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is really helpful to your health to assess, where am I on this? What should I be doing? Because remember the datum that I gave previously in engineering, 90% of finding the correct answer is asking the right question. And that is what Septemics is about, asking the right question.
Yeah.
What level am I at is the question on any scale. So when you ask that question and you have these data which are correct, you then can find your level. See, it's not hard to find these levels because you're only selecting from amongst 7 choices, which is an advantage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any questions?
No.
So I guess we're done for today, right?
We are done for the day. Yeah, till the next one. But yeah, for those who don't have who have not gotten a book, don't forget go to septemics.com. You want to know what it looks like? This is it. And if you haven't gotten a book yet, get it. And you can watch us again. Come back on. We'll pick back up on getting used to seasons. Chapter 19.
Right.
Which
And
is
let me invite your listeners to my website, septemics.com, where you can see what many readers have said about it, what many journalists have written about it. You can read the reviews, you can read portions of the book itself, and you can listen to a Introduction to Septemics, recorded by myself,
Yeah.
made for new people. You listen to that, and in about 15 minutes, you'll have a pretty good idea what this new subject is about.
Yeah.
And then you can decide if you want to buy the book or not.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah.
Thank you,
Jim.
Paul.
You're very welcome. It's a pleasure to have you back, and we'll see you next week.
Yes.
Cool. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the special report of the seance and going over a Septemics, a philosophical science, and a course in the instruction. So get your book this week, and that way you can chime back in next week and follow along. Cool. Thank you, Jim. You have a wonderful night.
Thanks, Paul.
Everybody, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time.